Welcome back, True Seeker. September 11th, 2018. It's hard to believe 17 years have gone by and there has not been any justice taken against the people who are responsible for the attacks 17 years ago. It was not a man in a cave, it was the people who run this nation. Again, September 11th, 1990, 11 years to the day of the attack, George Herbert Walker Bush was the President of the United States, and he gave a speech talking about a new world order, a world freer of terrorism, no longer the rule of the jungle, his words. 11 years later, his son would become the president, and the attack would happen on that very day in the 11th state. The first plane to hit the giant buildings that look like 11s was Flight AA-11. The World Trade Centers were 110 stories tall, 110. When you know numerology, you know 11's the master number. And that was something I learned about shortly after the attacks of September 11th because I knew it was numerological. A national emergency on 911. I was nobody's fool. And as a young 18-year-old, my second week of college, I had a new priority in this world, and that was to achieve justice for the obvious lie that I saw that day and to pull back the wool from people's eyes with regards to this deception we're living under as a nation. What I already knew before 9/11 is this was not a democracy. This was a state of kings and queens and servant class people, kind of family I came from. I have two working parents. As a child, they worked 7 days a week, long hours each day. In the summer, they couldn't afford childcare. I used to work with them in the summer. I started doing that when I was 6 years old. You know, a lot of people in this nation live in that kind of way. You know, poor, hard work, stress, not a good environment. Meanwhile, kings and queens are ruling over us. False elections, all deception. Told a man, Christopher Columbus discovered a nation where people already lived. See, my grandmother, she's half native, so I consider myself native in a way. You know, just saw that this world was a lie. And the day 9/11 happened, I was just so sick of the lies and the deception and people not speaking against it and people not seeing it. I put it upon myself to figure out what's going on and provide undeniable evidence that there is a real agenda, a real conspiracy being waged against us. You know, when I was 18 years old and 9/11 happened, the other thought in my mind was all my friends who were now about to get shipped off to war, because I had nearly signed up with the military between my junior and senior summer. You know, that's the age when you get recruited. And I'd been told by a recruiter, you know, if you join, there'll never be another war in your lifetime. You'll get your education paid for. And I got to thank my mother, because she did tell me that the United States of America was essentially a mercenary force for terrible people going around the world murdering innocents for wars that don't need to happen. So thanks to her, you know, I didn't join the military. And thanks to my mother, she helped keep me sane after 9/11 because she was one of the only people I knew in the world that also saw that it was a lie. But here we are, 17 years later. I released a book at the beginning of this year, teaches you the code of the way the tyrants operate. And the chapter in this book on September 11th, which is a very long and thorough chapter, it is easily the best exposure of the rituals and lies of 9/11. Let's talk about the most simple one to see. You can wake your friends and family up to the lies of 9/11 through this. And this is a fitting day to teach your friends and family. Please, if you're out there and you have someone in your family who does not question 9/11, bring this up to them today. They're going to have to think about this. They can't just dismiss this. You know, this one honestly even makes my sister pause each time, and then she acts like I never said it, but I know it weighs on her mind. And trust me, my sister, you know, she is the biggest sheep out there. On the days of 9/11, she was calling me, September 11, 2001. I was in Arizona. She was up in Portland, Oregon. She was calling me. She was telling me I need to go out and get a gas mask. I need to get, you know, rations. She thought the world was about to end. And I was saying, no, Jen, this is some sort of fear campaign. This is some sort of racial, religious divisiveness. This is some sort of, I don't know, but I just know that it's not some boogeyman in a cave. It's not some terrorist network. This is our government. You know, she still doesn't really get it. But when I tell her this one, it always makes her just like, get that stare like, oh, I don't know what to say. But look at this. You can look this up. It's an absolute fact. Pentagon construction started September 11th, 1941. 60 years to the day of September 11th. And here we are in 2018. It's the 77-year anniversary of that date. You'll recall, on September 11th, 2001, it was reported that Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. And if you read the 9/11 Commission report, Flight 77 took off at 8:20 in the morning. 8:20 a.m., it crashed into the World Center at 9:37 a.m. 8:20 a.m. to 9:37 a.m. is 77 minutes later. Flight 77 crashes into the World Trade Center 77 minutes later. If you look further, if you do a little more investigating, the World Trade Center is on the 77th meridian, known as the American meridian, the 77th meridian, right? If you look even further and look up the height of the Pentagon, it's 77 feet tall. So now we have Flight 77 hitting the 77-foot tall Pentagon on the 77th meridian, 77 minutes after taking off. For years, I looked at riddles like this, and I didn't know what to make of it. I saw that there was something very numerological. It took me 12 years from the time of September 11th to discover what I've been teaching since 2013, and that is the language of letters into numbers. It is a practice that comes from Kabbalah. Kabbalah has the core belief that God created the world by merging the letter with the number. When I learned about this and learned how this code was being used, I said, this is what the world elite are doing. The cabal. They're using this code that is attributed to God to play God over the masses and to mock us all the way. Because we're expected to believe and trust in authority. The same way, from a young age, how many of us are taught to believe and not question the religious authority. There's a direct parallel. You know, we're taught to not talk about religion. We're taught to not talk about politics. We're taught to behave and be obedient and not question and follow. You know, it's interesting that so many Christians have this belief system when this isn't the type of person that their spiritual leader was, Jesus. You know, Jesus questioned. Jesus pulled back the curtain. You know, Jesus fought for truth. Anyway, I want you to see that in the language of Gematria, which comes from Kabbalists, the practice coding numbers into words, in the most important ciphers there are, September 11th and World Trade Center both sum to 77. Also in the base cipher, United States is 77. The 77th meridian that cuts through DC is known as the American meridian. Last year, there was this story in the media about a young girl dying in a college pancake eating contest. And if you read the story, it was about how her father was killed in the collapse of the World Trade Centers. The authority puts out the theory, the pancake theory of how the World Trade Centers collapsed, because that day, September 11th, is the only day in history that buildings ever fell that had steel framing from a fire. 3 buildings collapsed that day with steel frames, towers 1 and 2, which were hit by planes, and building 7, which fell 8 hours later in the day, and also had the collapse blamed on a fire. Now, some people say buildings 1 and 2 fell because they were hit by a plane and the structure was compromised. That's not true, but even if you believe that theory, then how did building 7 fall 8 hours later from a little fire? It wasn't hit by a plane. It didn't have much structural damage. That building was a federal building housing all sorts of major court cases, including the one against Enron and WorldCom at the time. You know, major financial contributors. The Bush administration's 2 biggest contributors at the time for the election. You know, those 2 companies both under federal investigation. All the court documents against them destroyed on September 11th. About 1 million birds were killed with 1 stone on September 11th. But I want you to see that pancake eating contest equals 77, and this story was a sick joke. You know, the pancake collapse theory, daughter of a hero who died that day, yada, yada, yada. You see what they're doing? This is called mocking us by the numbers, year after year. Now, in my book, I show how the world of sports and news is merged, and I show how the riddle of September 11th and the Patriot Act, and then the New England Patriots, and then Tom Brady born in 1977. And I show how these riddles carry on throughout history. Last night, Monday Night Football, the first Monday Night Football game of the season, during the time of Rosh Hashanah, you get these big riddles with numbers that had to do with 9/11. Sam Darnold of the Rams, of the New York Jets, improved the record against the Jets and Lions to 7-7, like 77. The next game, the Ram and Raiders, the first quarter, the score was 7-7. All night, the camera was on number 77, Andrew Whitworth of the Rams, who was mic'd up for the game. Not arbitrary. This happened during Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Rosh Hashanah this year is September 9th to September 11th. Judaism equals 77, so does Zionist. And I want you to think about September 11th. Last night in the Rams game, they deliberately put this on the screen and made sure that the camera stuck on it. The camera was sitting on this shot with her arm up, giving water to Gurley for at least 10 seconds. And I happened to be talking to my friend in Houston, Darrell, and I said, dude, look at the TV screen right now. And he's like, what? I said, look at what's on the screen. And he didn't see it. I said, tell me you have a TV that you can rewind. And he goes, I do. I go, rewind the TV like 30 seconds and look at this woman holding up the water bottle for Gurley and look at the Star of David on her arm right now. This was about 10 o'clock p.m. on the West Coast. He was in Houston, so it was about midnight. On the East Coast, it was 1 in the morning. It was already September 11th. Rosh Hashanah. And this Star of David was being shown at that time early in the hours of September 11th, the date written 11/9. Star of David 119, Orthodox 119, Ashkenazi Jews 119. That's who the light-skinned Jews are. In the Bible, the Jews are black, you know. They have skin of burnt brass and hair of wool. Remember, after September 11th, Ehud Barak, the leader of Israel, came over to the United States and he told us to declare a war on terrorism against Afghanistan and Iraq. What happened? We followed our commander. You know? I'll remind you one more time. Osama bin Laden reported dead in the media exactly 119 weeks after Obama took office. Another one, Osama bin Laden's father supposedly died in a plane crash September 3rd, 1967, the day leaving 119 days left in the year. Osama bin Laden was a CIA asset. With regards to the CIA, in Gematria, CIA equals 68. CIA equals 68. 1968, this is another good riddle to explain to people. In 1968, the New York Jets won their only Super Bowl. Remember, the Jets sacked Drew Bledsoe, number 11 on the Patriots, ended his career with the Patriots. Then Tom Brady came and led him to the Super Bowl over the Rams, who played last night, Monday Night Football, where the Star of David was up. The Jews, the Ram Horn, Rosh Hashanah, the New Year. You see how this goes? But anyway, 1968, the year the New York Jets won their only Super Bowl. Years later, a jet flies into Drew Bledsoe, number 11, gives rise to Tom Brady, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Anyway, 68. Last night, Monday Night Football, Sam Darnold becomes the youngest starting quarterback in the last 68 years. Jets won their only Super Bowl in 68. Same year 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. Same year World Trade Center construction began. Same year George W. Bush graduated from Yale and Skull and Bones. Same year Space Odyssey 2001 came out. From Bush's birthday, July 6th, to September 11th is a span of 68 days. His father, who gave the New World Order speech September 11th, 1990, 11 years to the day, was once the head of the CIA. CIA 68 when you flip the alphabetic order around. C becomes 24, I becomes 18, A becomes 26. 24 plus 18 plus 26, 68. 68. Did you see the winning scores of last night's Monday Night Football? The two winning scores were 33 and 48 last night. MNF 33-48, Sam 33-48, Mandorla, the shape of the football 33-48, New York 33, New York Jets 48. 33 years from 68 to 2001. False flag equals 33 and 48. Joe Namath equals 33 and 48. The Jets quarterback who won it in 68. Same cipher. Should have put that up here. Joe Namath 33-48. Joe Namath, known for throwing the pick sixes like how Sam Darnold's career began. Interception equals 68. Again, if you want to know how this world is being run, from the rig sports to the rituals of September 11th to all of the other tragedies that are purposefully carried out in our media for the sake of agenda, you need to read my book. 773 pages, $5. You won't find a better read on what happened on September 11th, I guarantee you. What I just told you is just the tip of the iceberg in the riddles. You tell your friends about the 77 thing. You show them Gematria through that and ask, could that be a coincidence? Could all of these 77s be a coincidence and then that? And then if they watch football, say, hey, did you notice last night the Rams game was just following the number 77 everywhere? Did you notice the Lions and Jets are now 7-7? Show them the thing about Sam Darnold. You know, the Lions came into last night's game with no 100-yard rushers for 68 consecutive games. This book, have them read it. Say, read this book and tell me this is all a coincidence. Tell me you don't want to know the truth about this world. Tell me you don't want to fight back against tyranny, because this young man right here, Zachary K. Hubbard, he's laid it all out. He wrote this all in a book. He's been educating about this since 2013. Everything he talks about keeps happening by the exact same code. You know? In case you're new here, I've taught about the 77 ritual with September 11th from 2014 up to now probably 100 times. Probably the 50th video I've made on it. In case you don't know, my channel's been deleted 20 times by Google, and you don't have to ask why. You know, I never broke the rules. I never broke any copyright infringement. I never hated on any group of people, except for the tyrants. But don't I have the right to? Don't I have the right to speak against them for what they've done to us? You know? Just had the FBI come to my house and falsely accuse me of something I never did. You know? They falsely accused me of saying something that I never said, and it had to do with Judaism. And they knew I didn't say it because they didn't have any evidence. They just came here to give me a little scare. But I think that agent learned that I don't scare because I didn't shake, I wasn't nervous. I spoke to him confidently about what I'm about and why I'm not going to stop, and why, if he's a righteous man, he should stop working for the federal government. And maybe I said too much to him, but that's what I said. You know? These people are too ritualistic. It's going to backfire on them. I want you to know that the people who do this, it's not all Jewish people. I'm not speaking against all Jewish people. You know, young decoder, young man, he found this work at 14. He started his own blog, his own YouTube channel. He's doing great work. He's a young Jewish man. You know, there's Jewish people who are down to fight for the right side. But there's a sect of Jewish people who go by the Talmud, and they really believe in it. And if you don't know this, you need to know this. In the Talmud, look it up. It says that non-Jews are an animal race. We're not even considered human beings. We're considered too dumb to be human. It's expressed that we're too dumb to be considered the same as them. They are the only humans, and the only purpose of our existence is to work and slave so they don't have to. I want you to think about the way this nation's structured, a nation run by a central bank that has people that are on the board that are all Jewish. I want you to think about the way they set up the tax laws in this nation. We, the working class, are taxed to death. People who invest and live off the market, they don't have to pay any taxes on the profit that they get from their investments. The super rich who can sit back like this and collect money off their investments and these companies that we work for, that we buy and consume from, that allows all this revenue to float up to the investors, they don't have to pay taxes on it. They just sit back like this and collect. Meanwhile, we're working our asses off. We're buying stuff and we're paying taxes on all of it, left and right. We work, we pay the tax, we buy, we pay more tax. You know, we buy something and pay tax on it. We want to sell it to somebody later. We're supposed to pay more taxes on that. Who did this? You know why we sit here and accept it? Because they gave us alcohol. Because they gave us pharmaceuticals. Because they gave us entertainment. They know that if we make this world, or they know that if they make this world acceptable enough for us, you know, enough enjoyment, we'll tolerate it. We're tolerating our own demise. We're tolerating being tortured. This has all been torture ever since September 11th. the constant threat of false fear, having our liberties and rights taken away, allowing us to be surveillanced. I mean, since September 11th, you can't even check out a book at the library without it going into a record that goes to the federal government. They need to know what you're reading. You know? They're tracking our information in every which way now. You think these rolled out at the same time as 9/11 and all this? By accident? You know, GPS, all this stuff at the same time. We're living out a planned agenda by the numbers. We're living in a giant police surveillance state, you know? It's not that they want to kill us all. It's that they want to control us more and more. And they want to make it impossible for us to fight back against tyranny. More police, more armored police, more police with armored vehicles. You know, less rights, less liberties, less ability to secretly plan. And you know what? People in this society need the right to secretly plan against their government, because in the Constitution we're given the right to protect ourselves from enemies foreign and domestic. And the enemies are domestic. They are our federal government. They are not here to protect us. They're not here to serve us. They're only here to control us and exploit us for the goons that oversee this nation. The banker tyrants. They control it all. The corporations, the media, the things that rule our lives. You know, that's what 9/11 was about. Help them get more of that stranglehold of control. Growing population, they got to do things. They got to scare everybody so they all stay in their house. It's easier to control people when they're all inside their house. You know, there's more people than when I was a child, but at the same time, the parks I used to play in as a child, which were full of children, I drive by them now and I don't even see a single child there. Why? Because all the parents are watching the news and they're seeing all the Amber Alerts and, oh my God, the latest kidnapping and child molestation and fear, fear, fear. You know? Now there's an obesity epidemic with children. When I was a child, all the adults were fat. Now all the children are mostly fat. Just fat children everywhere. I was driving my girl to school this morning. Drove past the bus stop. It just made me sad. I just saw, you know, little kids out there and they were all looking plump. You know? Felt like I could have gone over there and bounced them like a basketball. The only time they get to go outside is when they're waiting for the bus. I didn't even know these children lived around the corner. You know? Tonight, I'll be on the Chad Factor. If you don't know who he is, I've had him on my radio show a few times. He's got his radio show going. He asked me to come on to talk about September 11th and educate his audience. The information to sign up and listen to his radio show, you can listen through the phone or online. I'm going to put it in the description of this video. Go through the description, go through the links. It's going to be the bottom link. How to listen to tonight's radio program with the Chad Factor. You'll notice he's a lot different than me. He doesn't know anything about this code of letters or numbers, minus the little bit that he's retained from listening to me. And he still believes in the political system. He thought Donald Trump was here to fight the New World Order, which I've been educating him is absolutely not the case. But I like going on his radio show just because it's good for me to talk to somebody who's not like me and for people to listen to how that kind of conversation goes. And he wants to know more about the truth of 9/11. He was just a little boy when 9/11 happened. He's a little bit younger than I am. He's 9 years younger than me. So he was 9 years old. I was 18. Just barely. I just turned 18 when 9/11 happened. But, last point. Don't ever let anybody in this world tell you what you can't do, what you shouldn't do, because all along the path, from the time 9/11 happened to the time I discovered this research, since teaching about this research, all I've gotten is criticism, scrutiny, attacks, lost friends, had people question my mental health, My own family, not my mom, not my dad, they didn't disown me, but everybody else in my family has. And I have a big family. My sister, she doesn't let me talk really to her family anymore, except for this year when I had to go pick up her kids because their car broke down. She asked me not to talk to them about anything. But all of my outside family, none of them talk to me anymore. They all think I'm a weirdo. They all think that I have a mental illness and I'm here just talking nonsense. I don't care. The truth is, the people who are against me, they're under spell. They're under mind control. They're not as intelligent. They don't have as good a critical thinking skills. They're not as logical. They don't have eyes to see. I know all this. That's why I've never let anybody stop me, you know? And if you do share this information with somebody and they ridicule you, you remember, it's not you, it's them. It's what's expressed in the Talmud. The non-Jews, the Goyim, are sheep. They're animals. They're very dumb. You can easily lie to them. You can easily rape them. You're allowed to murder them. This is all expressed in the Talmud. In the Talmud, it's okay to have sex with little boys. I think under the age of 5. I think that's the rule. It's either that or 7. You know, you ever see that in your media? You see them demonize the Catholic Church all the time. You ever see them talk about how in the Talmud it's okay to have sex with little boys? You know that every single day there's all sorts of stories about Jewish men raping young boys. They don't make the news though, but they happen all the time. You look through court records and what's going on in the legal system, there's all sorts of charges and people in court for these things. But it's not in the news. It's not in the news. You know why? Because in the Talmud it says a goyim is not allowed to know what's in the Talmud. A goyim who knows what's in the Talmud is to be put to death. That's also in there, you know? Now just remember who the most evil man in the history of the world is. Same media that told you a man in a cave did 9/11. The most evil man in the world is the man who fought back against the Jewish boycott in 1933. Adolf Hitler. He had the Jews declare war on him. He fought back. He's the most evil man there ever was. He also told the greatest truth there ever was. The people who are plotting against the people of this world, the working class people, they're in the Masonic temples. They're hiding in the Masonic temples. They're buildings with no windows where they can keep their secrets. That's why you shut them all down. This code of letters and numbers, it's Masonic. The headquarters of Freemasonry is in Washington, D.C., the city named after the Scottish Rite Freemason. You know? If you can put 2 and 2 together, if you're a logical person, you know, you can see who's mocking you. You can see who wasn't really the most evil man there ever was. You know, that same person might have been the greatest truth teller in the last century. You know? Letters and Numbers, 773 pages, $5, no gimmicks. Probably the best book you'll ever read in your life. You know, if you already know the code of letters and numbers, you haven't read my book, you can just skip to the chapter on 9/11. You're going to learn so much. You're going to learn so much. Until next time, Truth Seeker.